In Montana to the United States House of Representatives, despite the attack and the misdemeanor assault charge that went with it. The reporter, Ben Jacobs, may never have seen the body slam coming, but in a climate of rising hostility toward journalists in the Trump era, some feared it was just a matter of time. In fact, it's not exactly an isolated event. Earlier this month, in Alaska, a reporter says he was slapped by a state senator. In D.C., a reporter says he was pinned against the wall by security guards as he tried to question the FCC commissioner. And in West Virginia, a journalist was arrested after questioning U.S. Health Secretary Tom Price. Look, journalists can be insistent, persistent, and sometimes downright obnoxious, but is the bar for open physical hostility lower now? And if so, what's that mean? Well, joining me now, Eric Wemple, a media reporter for The Washington Post, and Indira Lakshmanan, the Newmark Chair in Journalism Ethics at the Poynter Institute, a columnist for the Boston Globe. To both of you, Indira, start. What's going on here?
Well, I think it's really appalling. I mean, we write about and talk about attacks on press freedom all over the world. I've been a foreign correspondent, spent more than 12 years overseas in countries where there are literal attacks on the press, in China, you know, all over the place, in Venezuela. And to have to be talking and writing about this in the United States, where we actually have a First Amendment that in our Constitution puts in protections against you know, attacking the press, is really disturbing to me. And I feel as if President Trump's attacks on the media have paved the way for this. He has normalized... Paved the way, because he has normalized hatred of and denigration of the press by calling us the enemy of the people, by saying that we're some of... He did again in a tweet storm this morning. And by saying we're some of the most dishonest people, he has normalized hatred towards journalists, and that is wrong.
Eric,
I think that's
what do you do with the enemy? You attack. You know, if someone's the enemy, you attack them. I mean, I think that is...
Are we seeing more of this? I mean, people have been frustrated with press and have thrown people out of their offices and done other things in the past. It's not brand new that we're seeing some of this.
It seems anecdotally as though we are. What is perhaps even more, this is chilling and appalling, but what is maybe even more chilling and appalling is the level of support that some of this seems to be getting. If you notice anecdotally, a lot of reporters in Montana have gotten statements and sentiments from people out there saying, you know, good job. Great Gianforte. I support that. There were people who were murmuring when he made the apology to Ben Jacobs the night that he was elected. Some people are saying, suck it, media, and people are saying, good job. And they weren't excited necessarily that he was apologizing for this. Some people said, you know, the apology is not necessary. So I think that sentiment is what underlies that. I think that what we've seen here is that President Trump didn't necessarily reach the far extreme of the political sort of benefit that he could reap from hammering the media, you know. So I don't know that we've necessarily seen the end.
And Derek, I want to come back to you, and I want to remind us, as if we need reminding, of some of the tone that Donald Trump set during the campaign. Some of these comments that were addressed to protesters. You mentioned some of what he said about the press, but here are the kinds of things he was saying about protesters in the crowd. Take a look.
I'd like to punch him in the face, I'll tell you. Part of the problem, and part of the reason it takes so long, is nobody wants to hurt each other anymore. Knock the crap out of him, would you? Seriously.
And the audience hit back. And that's what we need, a little bit more of.
Now, Indira, I've covered presidents. I mean, I've never heard this kind of overt, you know, commentary from the president. Never mind what he says about the media, so that some in the media needed physical protection, security, when they were covering political rallies. Is he going to stop this?
It doesn't look, there's no sign that he's going to stop this. He seems to know that his base of support are people who respond positively to this kind of rhetoric. Now, to what Eric was saying, decline in trust in the press is something that actually has been happening for decades now. If we look at the Gallup polls, if we look at the Pew polls, we see that trust in the press last year hit an all-time low in the last 25 years. However, when you have a president who's up there with the biggest bully pulpit in the whole country or the world, and who's using that to tell the FBI, hey, I think you should go after the press, you should lock up journalists, or using this kind of violent language against people in the audience or against the press, I think you've got a real problem. That normalization of violence is wrong.
Let me push back.
I mean, we're supposed to have civic conversation here, not
nobody would defend violence against the media or anybody else, but let me push back just for the sake of the argument here.
But they might not defend it, but they certainly do sort of downplay and poo-poo it. You just watch Fox News.
Okay, but let's take another position here, which is, given the low esteem and trust that the media earn in survey after survey these days, and it's been happening for years. How about the media doing their jobs differently? How about recognizing that maybe there is something to this loss of trust, and maybe we shouldn't be so obnoxious?
Well,
I would push back on the obnoxious question. I think part of this is partisanship. We've got a hyper-partisan media situation.
Let's just take a look at what happened in Montana. This was a reporter asking a question about health care. Yeah. Dave Weigel pointed out, Greg Gianforte never, ever really addressed the issue of health care and the AHCA, the Republican health care proposal. This is what Ben Jacobs was trying to get him to address. The CBO had just released its score of the health care.
He was doing his job.
He was doing his job.
And it doesn't matter if he's obnoxious,
so I think
and if he's persistent, and the candidate doesn't want to talk about it.
I think that your premise is misplaced here, because this was reporter doing his job, and then Gianforte apparently roughs him up and then says, I'm sick and tired of this. I'm sick and tired of, you know, and the last guy did the same thing, which is asked a question.
Yeah, I mean, and my point here is that if you are not prepared as someone who is a candidate for public office to take questions from journalists, then you are doing the wrong thing. Well, then you don't belong in Capitol Hill.
Let me just say that despite the devil's advocate I just played, having just written a book called Ask More, yes, that's what reporters do. That's what we should all do.
And
right?
the journalist
well, you know, I got to get that in.
The journalist was not being obnoxious. In this case, he was just saying, look, we just have a second, you know, just quickly, what's your position?
No, he was being persistent.
It was all,
but that's what journalists are doing, and that's what public servants, when they get into the public realm, should understand they're in for. No?
Yes, I think so. I think that's, look, that has been a very much a touchstone of our sort of environment, a touchstone of our democracy thus far. It seems to be eroding. No.
We're going to watch it very closely. Eric, Indira, thank you so very much.